Hello, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Stay Frosty podcast with your host, Norm. Now, today I'm going to be talking about three things and probably some other things here and there, but the point is, I'm going to be talking about Dragon Ball Battle of the Gods, and in fact, Dragon Ball Super Battle of the Gods, Old School RuneScape Wilderness Quests, and Pandemic the board game. Now, if that doesn't excite you, then I don't know what will, but hopefully that'll be cool. So, as fitting, we go with something that's hot topic first. The hot topic of this podcast is going to be the board game, which I got for my birthday not too long ago. It was either my birthday or Christmas, and I'm pretty sure it's my birthday. So I'm going to go with my birthday. So I got it for my birthday. It's called Pandemic. It's a hot topic because, well, we're not in lockdown anymore, but it's been quite a few years since lockdown, and that was big news then. So because it was big news then, probably close to 4 years ago. 4 years ago, probably. 4 years ago, it was a big news. The pandemic was big news, obviously, because everyone's lives changed for a year or two. And then thinking, I was just, sometimes you think back to the lockdown and you think how weird it was, because especially if you went shopping at the supermarket in that time, which of course you should, because as you can eat your food, maybe deliveries. But the point is, if you went to the supermarket and did your shopping at the supermarket during lockdown, they, at least in the UK, they had one-way systems where the idea was that you went to go down every aisle, pick up what you needed, and not turn around and basically make contact with other people. How crazy is that? Like all the supermarkets did it as well. Like, how crazy was that? Like, it actually got implemented, and people, it was a thing. It was a thing for a while. There's the one-way supermarket. That's crazy. That's crazy. Anyway, yeah. Pandemic, the board game. It's interesting because it was actually made and designed quite a few years ago. Like, I'm talking like 10s, 20s of years before the big pandemic, being Corona, being the coronavirus, or should I say, COVID. But pandemic, right? Pandemic, the board game, is actually a unique twist on board games in the fact that you're playing with other people, right? There's like 4 or 5 or 6 of you. And in fact, instead of playing against each other, you have to play together to win. It's either you lose together or you win together. It's quite a unique angle. And actually, it requires a lot of focus to win. But from playing it a few times with my family, we have decided that there is still quite a lot of luck involved. The main bit of luck is, we're pretty sure it's dependent on which roles you get. Now, when I'd say roles, in the game, there's probably like 6 or 7 different cards which give you as a player a specific role, which actually gives you like an ability or a couple of abilities which you can perform in the game whenever. So like a good one, a really good one that we really liked was if you're like the I can't remember it. Maybe it was medic or something, but basically there was this one role you would get where if you're stood on a city, that city and all surrounding cities don't get infected anymore as long as you're there, which is really useful. Because the idea of the game, let me try and explain it simply to you guys. The idea of the game is that you are on the world map, and there are a number of cities which, depending on which card is turned up, gets more and more infected. And when there's 3 or more infection cubes on a city and it gets infected again, then that causes a thing called an outbreak. And you have an outbreak counter, and if you get to 7, you lose. But then you also lose if you run out of infection cubes, I'm pretty sure, of one color. You also lose if the infection rate gets too high. But actually, from my experience of playing the game, I've probably played it 3 or 4 times now. The most likely way you'll lose is from the outbreak counter. I don't. I think you will have to play a long game to lose from the infection rate getting too high, and running out of cubes is, yeah, it can be a bit of a sketchy one, but there are loads of cubes. So I think you'd really have to be failing miserably to lose with cubes instead of the outbreak counter, because the outbreak counter is happening because you have too many cubes in one area. But I feel like if there are loads of cubes on the board and you're running out, you probably would have already lost to the outbreak counter. But is what it is. But basically, it's that's the general premise. You basically every round, and it's not even every round, right? It's every turn. Every turn, you get more infection cubes put on the cities. So what we found was it takes so long for people to travel on this world map, and you have to make really good moves to win the game. Basically, you have to make really smart decisions. So basically, you have to explain your thinking, right? You have to explain your thought process as to why you should be doing this on by doing your move. Say you propose your move to the group. They say, "This is what I'm thinking I will do," and then the rest of the group kind of gives their ideas back to you, and you're like, "Okay, I could do it that way, this way, that way." So really, it's a weird one because it's almost like you don't even have a turn. It's almost like everyone is taking everyone's turns for themselves because you're all trying to win. So it's weird. I wouldn't say you ever have a turn, but it depends. I guess it depends who you play with, because I'm sure some people are more like, yeah, everyone's turn is the group's turn, so we're all gonna say what to do. But then maybe in my family we were a bit half and half, where each wanted to do what we wanted to do, but we would take into account the other ideas. Now, even saying that, there were some times when some of the moves that we did were solely by the group. The group was like, "We made a decision. We have done this. This is the best possible thing you can do." And it still turned out bad. It was crazy because what you don't account for is how long it takes you to get to places whilst the infection is happening, and you have to somehow manage the infection whilst moving to different places. So it's so lucky to it's all I'm sure most of the luck, because most board games are based on some form of luck. Most of the luck comes in with the rolls that you get given. So if you wanted to kind of cheese the board game, you would give yourselves the good roll cards. That's really the best way to do it, because I'm sure there are some rolls which just are so much worse than others. So that there's some of them are just seem so useless, and some of them are just epically good. There's like a really good one, right? Is where you're like the helicopter guy or something, and you can move someone from one part of the world to another freely. It's either whenever you want or on your turn or something, but it's still super good because you can only move like 3 cities or something on your turn, which is nothing. It would take you like 4 rounds, not even turns, right? It would take you 4 rounds to get across the globe, probably even more, with just you moving. So it's and by that time, 4 or 5 rounds is basically the end of the game because it all happens so fast. It's a really unique way of explaining how fast a pandemic can spread, and it's wild. It's wild. It's a really good. I really like it. It's a really good explanation as to why, or how pandemics can spread so quickly, and yeah, and how confusing, and really like we should be pretty proud of ourselves that the pandemic wasn't as bad as it could have been. Like we're still standing. Most of us are still alive. Like, it's a miracle. But who knows? Maybe there'll be a worse pandemic in the future. We just don't know. We just don't know. Now, there's not much more I could say about Pan because I have done a good job of explaining it. I think it's a good game. It's fun. It's quite stressful though. In terms of board games, it's not one of the ones where you would say, "Yeah, this is low key. Let's play this." When I'm thinking low key, I'm thinking like Catan or Sushi Go. And if, for those of you that don't know what Sushi Go is, it's a card game. It's actually a board game, but it's basically just 3 rounds, and each round you try and get as many points as you can by combining sushi cards together that you pick up. It's just very light-hearted, very casual. Really, it's only like intense if you're really competitive, I imagine. But that's probably the same with most board games. Let's be honest, most board games are probably quite quite low key if you're quite low key about it. So maybe Pandemic is a low key board game, and you just have to adopt the low key mindset, which I'm sure some people have perfected over the years, but others not so much. Um, yeah, I won't go into the details there because I don't want to call out anyone in the podcast. That's not the idea of the podcast. The podcast isn't about calling people out and slagging them off. That's not what I was going for when I was going making the podcast. When I was making the podcast, I was thinking, what parts of my non-work life can I share with the world? And I thought to myself, hey, games, oh, I love games. But actually, it's kind of ironic because I don't really play that many games. I I play RuneScape now. I play RuneScape. I used to play Dota a lot, but that ate up so much time that I didn't have any time for anything else. I did mention in a previous podcast I was playing Final Fantasy. But I have not yet. I've not yet continued that. I will do, but I got distracted by RuneScape. There's actually quite a lot of grind in RuneScape. I'm not surprised, but other people may be surprised. Well, anyway, there's a lot of grind in RuneScape, and when I say grind, I mean like, you know, doing the same task over and over again. It takes a long time. There's a lot of time that goes into the game, which makes it hard to play anything else because you're so busy grinding and you're so busy thinking, right, I need to do this today to keep up with whatever I need to do. Like I failed the past few days. I failed. I failed to play the RuneScape because play the RuneScape. Yeah, I failed because I have I have some equipment which helps me do herb runs, but I only get 3 of these teleports a day. And I was thinking, oh, that's so little. There's not enough teleports. But actually, past 2 days, I haven't really played at all because I've been reading. I was finishing off Jumaki, and actually, yesterday evening, I was I was sat here, right? I was too tired. I was actually too tired to game. I was like, no way. I am just too tired for this. I'm going to go read. So I read a little bit of a non-fiction book. It was a helpful book. It's called Mere Christianity, which I've had rave reviews about. Like lots of people I know have told me to read the book, and they say it's really good. So I started reading it, and I've continued reading it. So I'm like halfway through now. It's got some interesting ideas. It's got some interesting ideas, and yeah, it's pretty good. But when I was reading that book, I remember from a Sunday session that at the old church, the preacher was mentioning contemplative prayer. I really struggle with that word contemplative. It's a long word. I struggle to say it. Anyway, the point is, it could be meditation to be fair, but it was contemplative prayer. And the idea is that you just kind of pause. You just kind of pause and listen to God. Now, not all my listeners will resonate with that because not all my listeners believe in God, which is fine. Which is why I did just mention meditation. I think it is a form of meditation, and you can just apply it to your religion in some way. But basically, yeah, just sit down, and I closed my eyes, and then I just tried not to think about anything. Right? I tried not to think about anything. And then 5 minutes went by, I think. and I must have fallen asleep. I must have fallen asleep because I woke up. I started this at 7:30. I woke up, looked at the time, and it was 9 o'clock. So it's like, don't know if that worked or not. But I said to my colleague today, I said, it's I was here when I'm at church. There's often a phrase is said to me, or is said to the group. It said, "The Lord will give you rest." And when I was doing this yesterday, this is what I was thinking. I was thinking, "The Lord will give me rest," and He sure did, because I fell asleep. So I'm not sure if that's meant to happen or not, but it was good. It was a good sleep. I slept till 9, and then I just thought I'm too tired to do anything. I may as well just go to bed. So I went to bed and had an early night, and it was great. I had such a good sleep, felt so refreshed, and thought, wow, I could just do that again and again. Uh, the struggle of meditation, because I don't think you're actually meant to fall asleep when you're meditating. I think you're meant to be in like a state of meditativeness, and then when you wake up, you feel refreshed from that alone. But yes, I did just fall asleep. But it's interesting because when I was starting to fall asleep, thoughts passed me by. They always talk about like the meditative people. If you have like any sessions with like yoga or mindfulness or anything like that, they often say that thoughts just come by and you can acknowledge these thoughts and just let them go. Just let them go past. And it's interesting how it happens, because when you are sat there doing nothing, random thoughts do just suddenly kind of pop into your head that you weren't like consciously thinking of. But like I was sat there, for example, and I think something like to do with Duolingo kind of popped into my head. Like I had like a Ukrainian phrase like popped into my head, and I was thinking, that is so random, because I do not spend barely any of my day speaking Ukrainian, thinking about Ukrainian, or anything to do with that, and that just pops into my head. That's crazy. It's crazy. It just doesn't make any sense. But I did watch that one go by, and I just let it go. Just let it go. They say, breathe in through the nose, breathe out through the mouth. Yep. And then just meditate, whatever that actually means. Actually meditating. I don't know what that is, but I guess it's just you at one with something around you. It's probably quite healthy. And if I did it more, I wonder what happened. Maybe that's the challenge. Maybe that's the challenge that I'm giving myself today, is that I will consciously meditate more, and we will see where I go with this, because this is the Stay Frosty podcast, guys, because you have to stay frosty out there. You have to keep your wits about you. And if you're not ready to meditate, no, that's not where I was going with that. Really, you just have to be ready for anything. And if so many people bang on to me about meditation, and they say it's really good for you, why shouldn't I try it? Maybe this is the journey. This is the Stay Frosty podcast journey, where we have started out with games and films. Now we've branched out into books and TV shows. Now we're branching even further. Now we're going to non-fiction books and meditation. Now, where could this podcast go? We just don't know. This is the SF journey. This is the SF journey, and we're all a part of it. We're all a part of it. Now, so guys, it's about halfway through the podcast, and as per usual, I have been looking into the analytics of my podcast, and I can see that about 50% of you are not subscribed to this channel. Now, it would really be great if we could put that number just up a little bit higher. I said 60% last week. This time I'm going 54%. That would be awesome. Next time I look at my analytics, if we're 54%, you can all get a pat on the back because you are making this podcast amazing. Now, if you want to know how to improve that number, well, simple. It would require just 2 or 3 of you guys that listen every week just to look down there, click the subscribe button, and you'll have done Big Norm a favor. Big Norm a favor. So that was a halfway point, as we normally do. That was good. And now, without further ado, I'm moving on rapidly to a TV show that I've been following for a few weeks now because it's been on BBC iPlayer. It is called Dragon Ball Super Battle of the Gods. So at least that's the first season. The first season is Battle of the Gods, and I sat down and watched it all whilst playing RuneScape. Yes, I do multitask, and I have to say I multitasked very well. And what I realized about Dragon Ball Super, at least, I don't know if it's the same for the rest of Dragon Ball Z, but there is a lot of yelling, and there is a lot of really, well, I didn't really have to pay much attention to it because there really wasn't that much story. Should I be surprised? I don't know, because all I really knew about Dragon Ball was that it was about guys with long blonde hair fighting each other with superpowers, which is basically what this was. I wish there was a bit more meat, really, in terms of plot. I wish there was something more there. And maybe there will be on further seasons. Maybe it was just this season where it was basically about Goku and his team, his guys, against one dude. And maybe there will be something else in the future seasons. And I'm not saying as a bad thing. It's a criticism for sure, but it's not a bad thing. It's just different. You know, I'm used to TV shows sucking up my attention span, but this really didn't. This was just mindless combat with lots of yelling. There was a lot of yelling. I'm so glad I didn't watch it on the TV because I did watch a few episodes on TV and it was quite loud. But these later episodes, the later episodes in this season, they got loud. There was a lot of yelling. Goku got mad, but in a happy way. Like he's got this funny outlook on fights where he's like about to die, and he's like suddenly a switch flicks in his brain. Flips. A switch flips in his brain where he says to himself, "It's not over. This is what I wanted. This is the time for me to get stronger, even stronger than I already was." He just seems it's so unrealistic because he has just been beaten to a pulp. He's like sinking to the bottom of the ocean floor, and he's suddenly like, "Yes, this is the moment. I'm waking up. I'm getting even stronger." And then he fights back, and it's I guess it's quite inspirational in a way, you know, because last episode I talked about American Psycho and how it's just not aspirational. I would say Goku in Dragon Ball is inspirational. You know, it's inspirational because he never gives up and he always sees a challenge as a good thing. Like he's always thinking like, yes, this will make me stronger. I may lose, but it will make me stronger. I may win, but it will make me stronger. Like everything he does is just to make himself stronger. And it's just great because so many times I would face a challenge, like so many different challenges in life, and sometimes I would be so frustrated and just kind of give up, basically, just give up and just not keep going. Sometimes I would, though. Sometimes I would persevere. I say I have a pretty decent amount of grit when it comes to challenges, but some challenges seem so hopeless that it didn't matter what I did, it was just doomed from the start. Which is probably true for some things. Like, for example, when I was in school, I did music as a GCSE. And, well, let's just say that was a mistake because I don't think I'd even done a grade 1 in my trumpet. I did not practice. I thought for some reason that the music GCSE was going to be like the music lessons from year 7 to year 10, which is just completely not true. I should have definitely gone to the open evenings, or at least if I did, I should have paid attention because I did not. And that was a fail. That was a fail. But during that, when I was doing that GCSE, I just did. Yeah, I gave up. I gave up because I was like, I suck at music, and I just can't do this. It's impossible. And I just that's how it is. That's how it is. I'm not really sure where I was going with that, but basically, Goku is an inspiration to me because sometimes I find challenges too much, too overwhelming, and I just give up and don't even try. I think that's the worst thing actually in life. In that you when you think back to your past and you think of things you've done, I think you regret the things you regret the most are the things where you just didn't even try. You didn't even give yourself credit and try something or try to do it. Or maths, for example. I don't know. You struggle really hard on a maths question, but you didn't even try to find the answer. You didn't even try and cheat. At least try and cheat. Like you might feel bad about cheating. You're like, right, I looked up the answer. I suck. But at least you tried. At least you didn't just throw in the towel and start crying because that's what I probably would have done in that situation. I probably would have started crying when I was like, I don't know, 14. I loved putting the waterworks. I loved it. I would have happily put in the waterworks. But it's just not the way the real world goes, because in the real world, as long as the job gets done, I don't think anyone cares. No one really cares how it's done. Yeah, some people probably do, but massive oversight. But I think generally, just don't give up. Try your best, and try not to cheat. But if you're gonna cheat, at least do it subtly. I've known people who cheat in like coursework or probably even their jobs. They'll just go to, I don't know, they'll go to AI or something. They'll go to ChatGPT, find out the exact answer they need or something, and just claim it as their own. Or worse, they'll pay someone online to do it, and then they'll just rip it off them. And as long as the other guy says it's fine, then it's fine, and no one is actually none the wiser because that's not AI doing his job. It's someone else. It's human, and that. I mean, the real way to crack that is to ask the person who submitted this work how it works, or basically how it works, because I'm sure that's a question that ChatGPT probably struggles with, is how, or actually maybe not how, but why. Why do things work? I think it might struggle if you asked it why, but maybe next podcast I can talk about ChatGPT and we can go through some ChatGPT questions together and see what its responses were, because that'd be quite interesting. That'd be quite a good one. And finally, guys, I'm going to be talking about old school RuneScape wilderness quests. Now, we've come quite a far way in this podcast already, so I haven't got too much longer to talk about this, which is quite fortunate because I feel like the old school RuneScape sections are quite, well, they're quite niche, really, aren't they? And if you're not in the know about RuneScape, you might get quite bored. So I'm going to keep it short and snappy. Old school RuneScape wilderness quests. There are a couple of quests I've done recently where there's a region in the world in RuneScape. It's called the Wilderness. Now, the Wilderness is an area where player versus player combat can happen, and also, if you die to another player, or actually anywhere in the Wilderness, you will drop a lot of your items. Basically, you will drop everything except 3 items. And those 3 items, fortunately, will be your most expensive gear, but you will still drop everything else, which is pretty terrifying in the game because you'll spend hours and hours and hours grinding out this stuff that you've got. So you really don't want to die there. Now, I had some quests where actually they were very easy quests. They just required me to go to the wilderness for a couple of things. One of them was I had to go to a chaos altar to imbue a wand, which was dead easy. On the world I was in, I didn't see anyone else doing it, so I was like, okay, great. It was very easy, and it was not a trouble at all. That one was just a walk in the park. I just had to walk into the wilderness, go to a chaos altar, and run around there and imbue the stuff, and that was it. That's all I had to do. Job done. But this is the thing, which is weird because on RuneLite, which is a third-party piece of software to help you guys play RuneScape, there's a plugin which is like a quest guide, and it tells you basically when you should do certain quests. And so these quests were really late on in the quest guide. They're around the times when I'm doing like medium long quests, which are kind of for experienced players. We're pretty good at the game, I guess. But these quests were in there, and these were so easy. These quests were so easy. They were just not hard at all. They were probably as easy as like Sheep Shearer. Like Sheep Shearer was probably more annoying. And when I said Sheep Shearer is one of the beginning quests, it's one of the first quests you do. And these two quests were so easy. So it was that one. There was also another one. Basically, I just had to run to the wilderness a tiny little bit in a dungeon, and then go kill this boss with like 4 spells, and I could safe spot it, and that was it. That's all I had to do in the wilderness, and that was literally it. And I remember later on, I realized I unlocked cooking gauntlets from this quest, and for ages when I've been leveling up in the game, I thought, oh, it'd be nice to have cooking gauntlets, but I don't want to do this quest yet because it's one of the harder quests. It wasn't hard. It's so disappointing because I was really hoping that quest would actually be quite hard, but it wasn't. So it actually gives me a lot of confidence that I'm doing well and the progress is going well. But actually, what has given me the most confidence in RuneScape is a thing called the Fight Caves. The Fight Caves, where you get a cape called the Fire Cape for winning it. This thing really tested me, and I think it did wonders for my RuneScape confidence. But that is a topic for another podcast episode. So you'll just have to keep watching, guys, until next time, because that is when I will be discussing not only the Fire Cape, but also something else that I mentioned earlier in the podcast, which I've completely forgotten now. So yeah, I'm gonna wrap this one up, guys. Yeah, you've been listening to an episode of the Stay Frosty podcast with your host Norm, and until next time, guys, stay frosty.